Hello and welcome to this video about the things that I would do to fix the Nintendo Switch. Before we get into the video properly, I want to point out that the Nintendo Switch is potentially my favourite game console ever made. So this is by no means me saying that the Switch is terrible in its current state. In fact, I believe quite the opposite. Some of the things that I love about the console are the amazing game selection that you've got. I mean, you've got the stuff from Nintendo, the first party stuff. You've got the awesome array of indie games, and plus, unexpectedly, you've got quite a good selection of third-party games as well. Stuff like The Witcher 3, Doom 2016, Skyrim, just stuff that you never thought would be available on the Switch, and yet somehow, it is. I also really like the digital store for the Switch, and I think it's way better than the competition. It's well organised, there's deals all the time which include stuff that I'm interested in picking up, and plus the search feature is pretty good too. If I was to nitpick the store, I would say that with it having no music, it doesn't really have as much of an identity as the Wii U and Wii stores had, but like I say, that's just a nitpick. I just think that the hardware of the Nintendo Switch is straight up genius. The way that it's a home console and portable hybrid makes it so it's easy to just pick up and play no matter where you are. And plus the Joy-Con are just incredible. The amount of technology that's stuffed into these things is overwhelming. I mean, you've got the IR camera, you've got motion controls, you've got an amiibo scanner, you've got HD rumble, and that's aside from the fact that you can turn them onto the side and use each individual Joy-Con as its own controller. It's just really impressive stuff. So yeah, the Nintendo Switch has basically become my go-to way of playing most games, and the game collection that I've got for it is the fastest growing game collection that I've ever had. So yeah, that should say something about how much I love the Nintendo Switch. But having said that, there are quite a few things that I would change about the system if they were to do a revised version of it. So now let's go through some of the things that I would change about the Switch, and you can leave your comments down below if I've missed anything off of this list as well, because I'm sure I've missed something. One of the most obvious things they should do with a revised version of the Nintendo Switch is simply make the screen bigger and better. I mean, simply get rid of the bezel on the Switch and you've already got another inch of screen right there for you, and the Switch wouldn't be any bigger as an actual console. One thing you've got to think about here to keep your expectations realistic is that the Switch itself couldn't be made any bigger, otherwise the Joy-Con either would look stupid attached to it, or wouldn't attach to it at all. So the only really realistic way of achieving a bigger screen is to get rid of the black border and make it so that the entire Switch is basically one big screen with no border. One of the things that I would personally add to the Switch is a HDMI output attached to the device itself. At the moment you have to use the dock to run a HDMI from to plug it into the TV, but this creates a situation where if you go away on holiday and want to play the Switch on a TV, you have to take the big hunk of plastic that is the Nintendo Switch dock with you. I think this kind of ruins the portable aspect of it somewhat, and I think it would be so much easier if you could just run a HDMI cable from the Switch straight to the TV without the need for the dock. I'm not sure if there's any technical reason why this couldn't work, but as far as I'm aware, the Nintendo Switch dock doesn't actually give the Switch any more power, and it's pretty much literally just a way of supplying power to it through a standard power lead, as well as giving it a HDMI output. So I don't know why this wouldn't be possible to do straight from the Switch. A problem that I've had with the Switch multiple times now is with the Joy-Con. Now, despite the Joy-Con being very good for the technology that's inside of them, it doesn't really come across as being that great when they don't work properly. What I mean by this is that I've had Joy-Con in the past that have disconnected from the Switch for a couple of seconds, which leads to you not being able to press any buttons. So for example, if you're trying to get a character to jump, they just straight up won't be responding to your button presses. This disconnection issue is annoying as well, because say that you're holding the left analog stick forward to move your character forward and then the Joy-Con disconnects, your character will continue to move even if you let go of the analog stick, meaning that you experience this loss of control where your character's moving without you telling them to. It's a really annoying issue, and to be honest, this hasn't happened to me for quite a while. but I think that's got something to do with the fact that I've moved house, and maybe there's less interference here or something, but I'm sure for a lot of people this is still an issue and it needs to be addressed. There's also another issue with the Joy-Con, which a lot of people have been complaining about online, which is to do with the analog stick drifting. I guess this issue is caused by the Joy-Con analog sticks being worn out and sort of drifting left, right, up or down a little bit, but it's annoying because when you think the analog stick is in the middle, it actually might be slightly in a direction, meaning again that your character is going to be moving when you don't want them to. This is a particularly annoying issue because basically to get this fixed, you're going to have to either get brand new Joy-Con or get the current ones repaired. This absolutely needs to be fixed, and I'm not entirely sure how they're going to do that, because if it's a problem with the actual hardware, they obviously can't ask you to send in everybody's Joy-Con to repair at once. But what they can do is make current versions of the Joy-Con better and not do this drifting. Another fairly obvious thing that they should add to the Nintendo Switch in a revised version is much better battery life. I've got one of the original versions of the Nintendo Switch, and depending on what game you're playing, it can sometimes only last for around 2.5 hours, which is decent enough, but it's kind of pathetic by today's standards. So yeah, I mean, this is a simple solution, isn't it? Just give the Switch a better battery. They've already done this in some of the revised versions of the Nintendo Switch, which I'm happy about, but obviously if they were to do a revised version of the Switch that was in theory more powerful, they should add this better battery into that as well. And yeah, like I just mentioned, obviously the revised version of the Switch, the main selling point would be that it was more powerful, so could display better graphics, in theory have higher frame rates, and things like that. I mean, that's the obvious benefit of releasing a new model of a current console, isn't it? That point kinda goes without saying. What I would hope they would do with this though is release updates for games that have already been released to make them look better or run better as well, because this would kind of breathe new life into them and get people to revisit those older games too. So far we've kind of just been talking about the hardware side of things, but I want to take a moment to talk about the changes I would make to the Switch's software too. So one of the things that I would do is I would add in more apps, so stuff like Twitch, Netflix, Twitter and Facebook, just so that the Switch has more functionality and isn't just a dedicated games console. It already does have a couple of apps, the most popular of them being YouTube, which I do use fairly frequently, so it would be handy to have these other apps on there as well. Another thing that they should probably add at this point is some kind of web browser. I know that it's probably seen as being a bit redundant because not many people would use it, but on the odd occasion where it would come in handy, it would just be nice to have. One of the big things that I'm actually surprised that they've not added by now is folders. You, at the moment, can't customize the way that your dashboard looks at all without putting new games in to send them to the front of the pile. It would be nice to be able to put games into folders and arrange the folders on the dashboard how you want, perhaps pinning them into place so that your favourite games are at the front and your least played ones are at the back. I think this would be a good idea, and it's kind of at the point now where I think most people have quite a lot of Switch games, so having folders would just make sense to organise them a bit better. If you like the way that the Switch currently deals with things, of course the folders would be optional, so it wouldn't really affect anything. It would just be a nice way for those people that want it to customise it how they want. At the moment there's an all games folder at the very right of the dashboard, and I think it would be an interesting idea to allow you to fully customise the games available in that folder, kinda like how you can do with the SNES and NES games on the Switch. At the moment there's only like 4 ways of actually sorting the games, but I think it would be great to allow you to actually drag and drop them where you want and effectively pin them into place. Another fairly big thing that I'm surprised they've not added by now is themes. At the moment there's only 2 themes available on the Switch, Basic Black and Basic White. Which is weird because calling them basic kind of implies that there's a more premium version, but there isn't. I think it would be great to give you the option to use your screenshots as a background for your dashboard, but also as well as that, if they start doing more dynamic themes, I don't think that they should sell them, because I think that that's kind of really stupid. I don't know anybody that buys premium themes, and I just don't think that they would ever get used. So potentially the way that they should handle this is make the themes available for Nintendo Switch Online users for free, and then not allow people that aren't paying that to have access to them, just to give you more of an incentive to pay for the subscription service. I think that that's a good middle point. Speaking of Nintendo Switch Online, another thing that I really think they need to change at this point is they need to update their servers or something, because tons of games that use the Nintendo Switch Online just straight up don't work properly. Like there's Super Smash Bros, there's Mario Maker 2, all of these like big hitter titles, and the online for them is just really, really bad. I mean, sure, it does work pretty well with some games like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe and Splatoon 2, but why isn't it just a consistent quality across the board? It kinda makes me angry because we're now paying for it, so the connections should be way better than what they were before, but they seem to just be keeping them the same, which doesn't make any sense. Another thing is that paying for this subscription I think should give us more benefits, like we should be getting more free games, both original stuff like we got Tetris 99, and also we should be getting more retro stuff, because at the moment we're not even getting the free monthly games anymore, they're just kind of releasing them whenever they feel like it, and I don't really think that that's good enough. So yeah, quite a lot of changes need to be made to this Nintendo Switch Online subscription service in my opinion, because at the moment, is it really worth paying for? Another thing that I think really needs updating is the sharing system. At the moment you can take screenshots, which is fine, and save up to 30 seconds of gameplay. Now, 30 seconds of gameplay really isn't a lot, and I feel like this could be made a lot longer. The PS4, for example, records the last 15 minutes of gameplay, which is obviously substantially longer than what the Switch can do. I mean, even if the Switch was upgraded just to do 2 minutes of gameplay, I think that would be good enough. But 30 seconds, I mean, that's not really enough to make a good clip out of. Another thing is that when you're sharing clips or screenshots to Twitter, you have this really low character limit for seemingly no reason. Like, it's a way lower character limit than what Twitter currently implements when you're on the desktop or mobile version, so I don't really know what's going on with that. When you post into Twitter as well, you can't even view what tags are popular, so it kinda makes it a little bit clunky and difficult to use. This is all stuff that could potentially be solved if the Switch had a dedicated Twitter app, because then I'm assuming it would just be the same as the mobile version. But yeah, at the moment, it's not great. Another thing is that I think they need to add in more friend functionality. At the moment, I think you can send game invites, but the invites only work on very specific games, so it would be nice to have that kind of more opened up so you could invite people from any game that you're playing. But as well as that, it would be nice to be able to add friends through an actual username rather than having to input a long friend code. I think that that's a really outdated way of doing things, and I'm surprised they stuck with that for the Nintendo Switch. Another obvious feature that's missing from the Switch that's available on literally everything else is the ability to message people or the ability to voice chat through the actual system. Yeah, you have the mobile app, but who wants to voice chat through the mobile when they've got a console sitting in front of them that should be capable of doing that? So yeah, I really do think that the friend, whole system needs revamping and being made to be more in line with what's currently available on the PS4 and Xbox One. When you go onto your album to look at your screenshots and videos, I really do think that this needs to be organised a little bit better. At the moment, you can filter by games, but you have to go through a menu to do it. It would be so much easier if when you just opened the albums, there was a list of folders there stating each game that you've taken pictures from. Then you go into that folder and all of the pictures and videos from that game are there. It would just make it so much more organised and so much easier to navigate if you were looking for a certain clip, because at the moment you would either just need to go through every single photo and video just to find the one you're looking for, or you would need to go through menus and filter them. Again, maybe giving you the option of customising folders and keeping your favourite screenshots and videos in one folder and then keeping the other ones in other folders would be handy. but at the moment there's like no customization available on the Switch whatsoever. My last point is that maybe it's time now that Nintendo implemented some sort of trophy or achievement system. I know that a lot of people don't care about this, and to be honest, I'm not entirely sure if I even care about it, but it would be quite nice to have some sort of take on that system, wouldn't it? Maybe instead of having like a massive list of achievements or trophies, what they should do is give you like a star next to the game depending on what you've done in it. Like it could go up to like 3 stars if you've done everything in it, give you 1 star if you've finished it, and give you like 2 stars if you're close to 100% in it. Something like that would be interesting for them to implement, I think. Also, to go along with this, it would be cool to be able to compare those stats with friends. So if you could click a friend's profile and view a list of every single game that they've played and see like a star rating next to it, I think that would be pretty cool. At the moment there is a sort of list like this, but it just displays how long you've played each game for, and I think after about 20 games it starts dropping the ones that you've played less recently off of the list. So it would be nice to have a list that has every game on there, and a list that has a little bit more detail as to how you've progressed as well. I'm not 100% sure if I'd want them to just implement the exact same system that trophies and achievements have, because I'm not 100% sure if I agree with that. It kind of somewhat takes away from the game when you're looking at an achievement list and you're trying to fill in this massive checklist rather than just playing the game how you would play it. So I kind of think I'm a little bit divided on whether I actually like trophies and achievements or not. So I kind of do appreciate that the Switch doesn't have a system like that, because it creates this feeling of freedom, like where you don't feel pressure to be filling in this list all the time. But like I say, if they did an interesting take on this, maybe with like some 3-star system like I mentioned, I think it could work. And I think that's about everything. I think that's pretty much every single change that I would make to the Switch if they ever did a revised version, or if they ever did a massive UI update or something like that. I think all of these changes would be pretty good, and I'm pretty sure that the majority of people would agree that these are good changes. So yeah, let me know in the comments what you think to all of the changes I just suggested, and let me know if I've missed anything as well, because I'm sure that I have. I'm sure there's some weird little thing that the Switch does that people don't like that I've just never really picked up on. So yeah, it would be interesting to know your take on it as well. And that about wraps up the video. So, until next time, I'll see you in the next video. Bye!